Hello quilters, it's Marianne Fontana, fontanaoriginals.com, and I am working on, you guessed it, another quilt for the American Quilter Magazine. This quilt will appear in the January 2025 issue, and it is called Ring Around My Heart. And it consists of little tiny hearts and larger hearts that go around in an offset circle to form this quilt. I've used Hoffman Bali batiks for the colors. I've used black. I just love black batik. I don't know about you, but this just stuff is really cool looking. And then I have used 7 shades in the red family, starting with a pink and going all the way to a very, very dark color. Now, a little bit of tip. When you purchase your fabric, you will need the 7 shades. As soon as you get them, mark them with numbers, number 1, number 2, number 3, up to 7, with 1 being the lightest and 7 being the darkest. That is going to help you immeasurably when it comes time to sewing the blocks together, because the color placement is critical in order to get the shading starting at light and going out to dark. Okay, now if I didn't mention it, this quilt finishes at 68 by 68. And as you know, as an AccuQuilt pattern designer and an ambassador, I cut everything out with AccuQuilt. And I have used for this quilt, it's a very simple pattern and it's very easy to do. And this is what the block looks like. And I have used a 6-inch cube, shaped one for the large squares, which is a 3.5-inch cut, 3-inch finished. And I have used shape 2, which is a 2-inch cut, 1.5-inch finished square. And that is all you need to make the blocks. Let me show you how to put it together. So here's the quilt again, and here is what the assembly of every block looks like. The only thing that changes are the colors. And these 2 colors are not the same. You have to be careful, and I'll walk you through that in a minute. But you can't see it here, but there are sashing rows, and these are 1.5-inch cut, which will finish at 1 inch, which gives us that little spacing in the middle and along the edges, which I really think helps add to it because it separates the shapes so you can see the hearts better. Let me go through it and walk through with you the different color variations you'll need. Now, for purposes of my eyesight and saving my printer, I printed out all of the blocks with a white background instead of black. Even though everything is sewn with black, the only reason I did this because it was easier for me to see. This is block A, and you're going to make 4. And obviously, as I said, I just put this because it's easier for me to see the lines and the colors and to write on it. This was difficult to write on in some cases. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to make the swirl blocks. And these are your 2-inch cut squares. And you will make, this is color number 2, you will make 4 for the A block. You will make 8 with color number 3 for the B block. You will make 8 with color number 4, and of course it's with black, not white, black. So you have 3 squares, 2-inch cut squares, and 1 black one. So this is color number 4, you make 8. For the D block, we're using color 5, and you will make 8 4 patches. Block E, you're using color 6, and you're making 5 4 patches. Block F, you're only making 1. Oops, turn it around. And they're all the same the right way. It doesn't really matter. And this is color number 6, and you will make 1. Now I have 1 more, and that's block G, which goes back, and now I'm using color number 7. And whether I turn it this way or that way, sometimes I just printed them different the way they laid out on the quilt. So this is color number 7, and you will make 2 of those. So this is the shape we're going to be making. It's a 4 patch, and you're using the 2-inch squares. I'm going to use, always have 1 black in the upper right-hand corner, and then 3 of the designated color. In this case, this is color number 7, which is the darkest of my reds. And I'm actually going to sew them this way. I'm making 2, so it's not that many, but a lot of times I'll chain them together because it's quicker, and I'll just sew them over this way, sew it this way, sew down the middle, and then flip them and sew them the other way. This is for the 4 patch, and I'm just going to very simply take the black and put it on top of the red, depending on which color you're doing, and I happen to be doing color number 7, which is the darkest of the reds, and just simply sew. And then I'm going to take 2 red and sew these together just below, because I'm making a 4 patch, so I'm actually lining up my colors the way they need to be in the 4 patch, because it makes it easier for me. And then I can just cut it off. Now, if you're doing string piecing, you're comfortable, you can certainly do multiples of these at a time, but I just really am doing this for demonstration purposes. You're going to finger press to the dark side, always whenever possible. Finger press to the darker of the 2 sides, and I will always press my fabric, my seams in one direction. I do not open them. It takes way too long, and this is so much easier because I get much better results, because when I do that, I can slide my pieces together so that they kiss and get a perfect point right there. Let's go back down and let me just slide that baby in place. Yeah, and you can actually feel it. If you do it correctly, you'd be able to feel it. And then you bring the top piece up and sew. And I'm only going to sew to the seam. And I'm going to stop with my needle down. I'm going to reposition. And that's it. It's as simple as that. There is your first heart, which is your corner patch. And they are the 2-inch cut, 1.5-inch finished. And you will make the designated number for each of the blocks as per the pattern that you need with the different red colorways. Put the block together, and once you've sewn all of these, sew every single color you have, and make sure you keep them in order and you know which is which. I actually print my pages from my EQ8, and I will mark the number I need on it, and I put them on top, and then I set them aside, and I stack them that way. It kind of helps me, keeps me honest. So let's look at how we're going to lay this out. Very simple. The first row, going to be 2 black squares and your baby heart. The second row is going to be 1 of your color squares. Now these are your 3.5-inch cut. So I'm going to put 1 in color here, and I'm going to put 2 black ones down here and here. And then the last row is going to have 2 of the designated red color and 1 more black. And that is your block. Just like that, super easy. And you will repeat that every single time for every single block. It's exactly the same construction. All we're gonna do is turn them and change the colors, the 2 reds, and the 2 reds are not the same color on the blocks. They're usually 1 shade different. In this case, this is color 7 and this is color 6. Let me show you how I sew it together. I'm going to sew the block together at one time. I'm going to sew this across, sew this, and sew this. So I'm actually going to have a seam going all the way down so that I have row 1 and 2 joined by string piecing. Then when I get to the next row, I'm going to open these up, and I'm going to go ahead and sew these on. Just a quick tip. Your 2 red colors will always be against the black on the last sewing. I always like to keep a sample of the block so I remember the construction, because my mind will wander and I will forget what I'm doing. So I'm going to keep one off to the side, but it will always be there where I can keep an eye on it. So the first thing I need to do to sew my block together, and if you want to look at this, this is the way we're sewing it. I'm going to sew 2 black blocks together. Then I'm going to sew a color and a black, and then 2 colors. So it's really easy. And I actually got into a little system. I was chain piecing all of rows 1 and 2 together for each of the color variations. In other words, I do 8 at one time and then finish them and then do the next color and work my way that way. Just very simply, we will sew 2 black together, 1 color. In this case, this is color number 6, and 1 black. Match up the points, slide it right under, continue, and then do the red color that you need. And in this case, this is color 6, as I said. And then cut it off. Then I'm going to come back, This is just what I just showed you on the board. I'm going to open the two black ones up. I'm going to get my red, and in this case, I need red number 7. And there'll always be one shade off between the large blocks and the small blocks. So I will put that on, and then as I told you, we will be doing 2 more black ones. If I can get this separated, there we go. And we'll take one more, put it right at the end, start to sew, match it up at the other side, sew. And I like to stop with my needle down with it on the fabric. And the reason I do that is because it actually helps the needle lift up a little. Not the needle, the foot pedal. The foot pedal is actually raised slightly off. So when I slide the next ones under, it's a little bit easier because there's a tiny little space left. Let's open this up, and I need one more black, and I will match it up on the corners and slide it under and sew. And those are put together. So now I have all the 9 pieces that are part of the block chain pieced together, just like that. And this is color 6 and this is color 7. And all I have to do is turn them. And in this case, I am going to push my seams to the middle block on the center. And the reason I'm doing that is because we get to the lighter colors, I don't want the seam showing on the pink. I want it showing on the black. So this one went in. Now, it's not always a perfect world. You may have to, deal with the black on some of it. But in this case, this is working out pretty nice. So I just kiss my seam like I showed you. Bring it up. And I do sew seam to seam. I don't sew end to end, which means I match my seams up to make sure they're good, and then I sew. Now, if you recall, we put that middle block. Both of them were up, so this one will go down. And you can feel it. Kiss. Again, stop right there at the seam. And cut it off. And then all I have to do is turn it around the opposite way, open this up, just like that, flip this over, kiss my seam right there, kiss, bring it forward, under the foot pedal, stop with the needle down, come over here. This one's going up, so this one will go down. And the block is finished. It's as easy as that. And here we are. Here's our block. And there's our small heart, and there's our large heart. Pretty cool, huh? Finished all my blocks, and here is block A, and this consists of color 1 and color 2 in those corners. Block B, and this is color 2 and color 3. Block C is color 3 and color 4. Block D is color 4 and color 5. And block E, which consists of color 5 and color 6. And block F, there is only one, and I have, this is color 7 and this is color 6. And then the last one, which is block G, is the exact opposite of the one we just did, and this is color 6 and color 7. And all my blocks are done. You should have 36 blocks. Now, when it comes time to assemble, I've again turned this into white so I can actually see what I'm doing. And as you can see, between every single square is a strip. Now, this shows a cornerstone. I'm not sewing cornerstones. What I'm going to do is put the strips between the rows, just like this, and make rows. Okay, and I'll have all the strips in between them, the sashing. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to sew a solid strip of black here to connect this row. Then I'll add that row. Then I'm going to have to take this row and cut it right there and put 1.5 inch cut square, which will finish at 1 inch, into that little corner piece so that I get that point that's shown here. And the biggest thing is swirling the colors around in the correct. You start in the middle with the lightest, and the colors get darker as they go out. I'm going to go ahead and sew my rows together, and I'll show you how they look. Before I started sewing, I laid everything out on my design floor. It was easier to put it on the floor. And the first thing you have to do is put the 4 center ones, which are the lightest, and always have the hearts pointing in. So there's the 4 hearts, and we're going to put that little tiny pink square right in the middle of that when we get to it. And then the next color goes around, and the next color goes around and around like that until you have them all laid out. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack them. I'm going to take one row and stack them all on top of each other and mark them 1. Take the next one, stack them on top of each other, and make 2. So I will have my sewing sequence. Stay tuned. I've added all the black strips, the sashing strips for the horizontal, and I put my little pink piece in. I think it looks good. That is the finished quilt with the exception of the border, and I did cut out 4.5-inch strips for the border.